All right, fading in. We'll see how all that works. That's all new. Right where we left off. Hey, the plan for the stream is to, I think, do a little catch up. I mean, honestly, we could do anything. If you think this will look boring, we can do something else. One thing that I'm doing on this stream in general is keeping as much as the entire process as possible on stream, like documented essentially, just as an experiment. And of course that slows everything down, but I'm trying to see how it plays out to get like a series of grade drawings done live and just see what kind of audience that can work with and where it falls apart. Like I think so too. And maybe though, I mean, I'm already very pleased with the interaction and the result. You know, thank you for joining in and having anything at all to do with this, because it's encouraging. But I definitely have ideas about what might come next. Because while Zelda is the mission at hand, it isn't the only goal. The idea is to just simply broadly document how I work as a freelancer and how those techniques can be applied to all kinds of projects. So I do work in video game trailers, so it's natural for me, and I have interest in Zelda. So this was obviously an easy fit for me. This was one that didn't feel like doing anything difficult or anything I didn't want to do. But later on, we might introduce challenges like, here, Max, develop your own Zelda IP, or, not Zelda IP, but what's your own brilliant idea for a video game, or what's your own brilliant idea for a movie? I'm not saying I have one, but I might come up with one. Might resurrect one or two I might have had when I was young. But thanks for joining. What time is it where you are? I ask because it is 5 a.m. where I am. And I got up early to shower and wash my hair and stuff like that. That takes a little while these days. But I'm doing everything I can to squeeze in more time for the stream before my wife and kids wake up. You're in the middle of Europe. I love this international twitchiness. This is very cool. Hey, Neela. There was it felt like a very hard thing to think of. Okay, well, not to disparage my fellow Americans, but we have a American, not even American, a United States of American centered sense of the universe in general. And when I started doing things at 4 a.m., I was wondering, I was like, well, let's see, no one in the United States is going to be watching this at all. Maybe people in Hawaii at most, as far as the States, but the fact that anybody in Europe, wait, Hawaii would be even earlier. That'd be crazy. Okay, so you can also tell that I'm bad at math as well as geography, but I hope you're all doing good. Yeah, I got myself coffee. Here's a coffee. There we go. Whoa, people. Haha. Everybody. I'm just not coloring, filling up these bats so that they aren't just transparent lines on a white background. And this is the kind of thing that, while might be boring to look at, is almost very zen and what's with the silliness? This is funny. So now it all makes is this you guys must all be in Europe. That's great. My long-term dream is to cultivate international audience, that because this does happen where like famous influential artists can sort of jet set and host workshops wherever they go, and they get to travel and be brilliant artists, and that's the dream, right? Okay, this is the one. So one day when I'm super famous, you all have to help me become super famous. But even if I'm just moderately famous, I'll still insist that I take time to travel. I've been to Europe more than a handful of times, so it's not so much specifically on my bucket list, but I just want to do it. I will remember you. However, it will be as if like we'll meet each other in person, and there will be no charisma. We'll be like, we're only friends on Twitch. This doesn't work in real life. It doesn't work. I wonder if like that would be a thing. I feel like I've yet to. I mean, this is me really just dipping my toes into the whole phenomenon. I mean, despite being like a millennial person or anything like that, I've always had in real life relationships. Like I meet all my friends in real life. I meet all of my significant others in real life, and I met my wife in real life. We didn't meet on like on an app or anything like that, and I feel like that's almost rare. It's just sort of an interesting thing for me to now like make all these contacts like this. Well, part of this is also like I want to cultivate an audience of just a little bit, if not more, so underneath my thing, so that when I do hold my workshops and such, it won't just be me and a bunch of old ladies. It'll be, well, nothing wrong with old ladies, of course. They tend to have the interest in those types of workshops, but I'd love to cultivate, young hep people so that I can stay young and stay cool. Here I am drawing on the wrong layer. Okay, here we go. Anyway, all that fun won't happen at all without a little hard work now, so just trying to stick with it. Well, that's what I want, is I want freelancers to look at this. Unfortunately, like literally right this second, I'm not doing anything particularly interesting in this drawing, but the process that I try to demo, and what I'm doing right now with this Zelda project is like concepting in slow mode. The earliest streams I did, where it was mostly just me and my brother sort of hanging out, and me just riffing out these compositions, all these rough compositions, started in that mode, and from those very quick kernels of ideas, we're still developing to this day. And this all started in November. So that's slow motion, that's slow motion. On a production, it would never be that slow. You would have to I mean, for one thing, there's no time to think. You almost draw with your emotion more than your brain. And there's no time to say, hi, how are you, chat? And go off on tangents and get distracted with things. So that's just the work of freelancing can be very condensed, very like in the zone. It's like you're in a flow state. And I'll demo stuff like that later on too. Okay, good. But for this, I'm definitely not trying to start off in any sort of like intimidation factor. I want this to also feel reachable. You work on the speed later. That comes after a lot of practice, I think. especially as we're doing where we're in this, we're sort of using limited reference, really pulling from creating our own answers to questions by asking more questions and using logic. Do you guys... I'll tell you a little story about how I got started. Oh man. These were... Makes me a little sad to think about poor old Maxie starting out. Because I really felt hopeless. Very hopeless in the beginning. Despite me knowing very well how to draw and make good art. And make good art. In 2000 and... It was 2002? 2003? Maybe? No. Was it 2004? Okay, it was like 2003. I think that's what it was. 2003. I had quit my job. Maybe I should back up a little bit. I wanted to be a fine artist when I was younger. And this, growing up, I graduated high school at 17 in the year 2000. And I was accepted to Vancouver Film School for animation. And so that was my next destination. A couple months later I was living alone in Vancouver, going to animation school. And it was a very different kind of... that's correct. I've been nearly... I've been a professional artist for almost 20 years, and for almost all of that time, I was pretty successful at it. Not so much in the very, very beginning, but that took time. But in at 17, I was going to animation school, and what was frustrating about that for me was I had it on good, intimate knowledge that the animation industry was changing, and yet the curriculum they were teaching us at the school, at the time at least, was very dated. Very not... Like, I had been learning about Flash, for instance, as even my younger brother at the time, a Boxer, was using Flash to make rudimentary animations with like keyframes and stuff on a computer. And I was like, this is the future. And then I'm going to this animation school, and it's like we're drawing on paper, we're drawing in, and meanwhile, I at my own little apartment that my parents set me up with, like they had me like a computer and a Wacom tablet, and I was like, this is the future, not all this drawing on paper and stuff like that. And that's not to denigrate traditional skills. Like I understand the fundamentals and stuff, but just like I could tell that the administration of the school was a little bit just phoning it in, like not really taking it seriously what was going to be a competitive skill set. So I was disillusioned with it, and I dropped out after a few months, despite having a bright talent and a bright future, in my own opinion, in animation. I was like, this is not it. This won't be the way. I came home, had a bunch of interpersonal issues with friends that the ones that moved, all my best friends moved away to college, so I didn't see them anymore. And then the ones that stayed were up to no good, so I fell in with some unfortunate habits there. And eventually they all went to college anyway, and me, having already dropped out of college at 18, felt like, okay, none of that was working out. So I didn't know what to do. So I just fell into the next job that came along, which was assistant editing on wedding video, which is it's sort of a cringe thing. But after many checks to the ego, I found that I enjoyed doing the... This is a roundabout way to get to my story. But like, I enjoyed working on Apple computers, doing the photo montages for these wedding videos in Final Cut Pro. And that was all new technology at the time. Like Firewire was new technology. If any of you were old enough to understand, like Firewire, DV setups and stuff like that, all of that was like new. And I felt like, I was like, okay, this actually is something this is new technology that was happening. And so I was very into sort of learning about the computers at that point. I eventually dovetailed that into being a Mac repairman. So I was a Mac repairman for a while, and then because I live Hollywood adjacent, I live in what they call the Valley. And the Valley is on, like, if the Hollywood sign faces Hollywood, then the Valley is on the other side of the Hollywood sign that the Hollywood sign doesn't face. And it's like a suburb of Hollywood. Now, it's still very much Hollywood because down the street, even from here in Studio City, which is in the Valley, but we've got the Hollywood Bowl, we've got CBS Studios, we've got NBC Studios, we've got Universal Studios I can practically walk to. So all this is like still, at least the section of the city that I live in, still pretty much Hollywood. Oh, yeah. And so anyway, all that is to say that like I would repair computers for people who worked in Hollywood. And one day I was dropping off a computer system for an artist. And I hadn't thought about being a professional artist in years at this point. I was probably 20 years old. And like I said, I dropped out of animation school at 17. So I went to install this guy's computer software in his own home. This was art software at the time. He was using, are you ready for this? Painter, which is the program I use now. I saw him, basically I installed it for him, made sure it worked, and I asked him to test it out to make sure it was working. And he was showing me like stuff that he was drawing, and I was like, wait a second. So I took stock for a second. I looked around and I was like, this is a nice house in the Hollywood Hills. And it's like, you're a digital artist? Because it didn't occur to me that you could be a digital artist. Again, this was in like 2002. Well, I guess it's 2004 at this point. Yeah. So anyway, I was watching him sort of demo, not too much unlike what I'm doing for you guys right now. I was watching him demo his work, his process. And he was actually a funny, interesting niche guy. Like, he was a rotoscoper paint out artist for puppeteering. So basically he'd be like, yeah, man, I get paid. I just sit here, blast my music, smoke weed all day, and like paint out all these little puppeteering lines that you can see in this footage. And he'd show me the footage, and he's like, I just use Painter. It's a great program. I can blend all this stuff. I just paint all day, make all these lines visible, man. It's great. And I was like, holy fucking shit. Because I was making like very, very minimal money repairing computers. And like, here was an artist doing something that I figured any artist could do. And he like could afford this house in Hollywood. And I was like, I'm going to give art another try. So that started me back on the art journey. Okay, that was a funny way of getting to the beginning of the story, which is like my portfolio starting out. So I bought Painter. I got my own Mac setup because I worked in a Mac store basically before Mac stores. Like Apple stores didn't exist at this time, but I worked for a reseller, so I was able to procure equipment more or less at cost via my employer, and then I had an art setup, like basically what I set up for that guy. I just started drawing and doing my best to create a digital art portfolio. And I started taking it around to studios like Disney and Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, and stuff like that. I had a nice, fun folder full of illustrations, cartoon studies, life drawing, of course, and just anything. I was like, really wanted to get into these places. I would start at the bottom, make coffee or whatever. So I'm like, okay. And my mother, who worked in animation, like you'd think like I could be like a Nepo baby or something like that. But the timing was terrible because even my mother, who had a good career in animation, was struggling to keep her jobs at the time. So this was not an easy time to break in. I knew that, but I was still gonna try it. She was like, you just go in. This is how you do it. You just go in and you drop off these portfolios. And I showed her my portfolio and she's like, this looks great. You know, drop it off. Go see what they say. They'll hire you right up. I was like, yeah, Mom, we got this. You know, I drive over. I go into like, say, Cartoon Network or whatever. And of course, yeah, it wasn't unlike what she said. Like you go in and you're like, hi, there's a reception desk, like a Cartoon Network. And I said, hi, I'm Max. I want to be a freelance storyboard artist. Can I drop off your portfolio for someone to review it when they have time? They said, oh yeah, of course, yeah, totally. I can help you with that. And the funny, they took my portfolio. A sweet young woman took my portfolio and turned around and put it on a stack, like sitting at the same height that she was. There was a stack that was probably 4 feet tall right behind her, and she put it at the top of the stack. And what happened next was crazy. Like the portfolio was like, you know how you stack things and it sort of gets off kilter. She put it at the top, and it was like the thing that tipped the Jenga piece. The whole stack just slid down, and my portfolio was like buried under this avalanche of other people's portfolios. And she saw that happen and just sort of laughed. And I said, "Oh, that's great, thanks." And so that I think gives you a sense of where I stood with those chances. Where were those odds of like getting hired in that way? It was nothing. You had no ability to stand out by, at least at that time. I don't know if it's different now. Nowadays they probably never see a real life portfolio. You probably stand out by actually handing somebody something printed out. But at the time, it was like, you know, you were raking leaves of other people's. I think it is harder these days. Yeah, I'm going to tell you some stories coming up next, which sort of shows how I separated from all that. So I knew that I could not take my. I mean, so my mother, you know, worked at Disney for 25 years at that point. And you'd think that, like, oh, okay, like, well, you know, she could mentor you and get you all these inside connections. And the industry was so difficult back then. And also my mother was a little bit clueless as to actually what was the obstacles facing a young person coming up. Yeah, they literally stacked them up, and my portfolio skid down like the avalanche, like a person on a ski slope, sliding all the way down to the bottom. So, and I was like, for all I know, that was the portfolios they had that week. And I did that at like 3 places and basically had similar stories. Now, almost all the places mailed back your portfolio, which sort of gives me an interesting perspective. Like, if they were mailing back every portfolio that they got, like as a courtesy to the artist, for instance, then you can imagine how many times that stack regenerated itself on any given day. Insanity. So, because that wasn't like a year's worth of portfolios. That could have been like a month or weeks, you know. So I knew that I had to do something different. So I did something very different at the time. And again, this was 2004, I think this was 2004. I made a website. Now, DeviantArt was a site that existed at the time. But one of the issues I had with DeviantArt was, well, a lot of the people on the site were better than me, and it was too easy to find artists that were better than me, even if I had art that looked good. Like, you'd have your stuff on your little section, but in the corner you'd have all this other amazing art that would fly by. It was too confusing. I had an idea that for a casual person trying to actually hire an artist in a professional setting, that might be confusing. Nowadays, I look back and I wondered if I miscalculated, because so many successful artists did actually start from DeviantArt. But that may be survivorship bias. And that may apply to myself as well. What I did do, though, was I made a website. It was just maxforward.com. And I had, of course, limited coding capabilities, but I knew how to repair computers and figure stuff out a little bit. So I did my own IT, and I made my own website, and I made an online portfolio that way. And then I did the bottom barrel stuff. I went on Craigslist and I basically posted not once a day in a few sections a day in Los Angeles, starting out, then in New York, then in Florida, whatever major city I could think of that looked like it had traction with Craigslist ads, the creative gig sections, creative services, whatever I could post into for free on Craigslist. I would post a couple drawings, a link to my website, and say I'll do illustration, character design, logo design, and storyboards. And I, believe it or not, made more money in the first year of just doing that than I did repairing computers. So right off the bat, and it was easy, of course, for people to be like, oh, you're advertising on Craigslist, like whatever. But there were, at the time, enough people who were hustling, entrepreneurs who were sort of like, hey, I need someone who's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I'm going to make a small deal on the side with a small artist and get something going for myself that way. There was enough of that actually put food on the table for me. And I was really into it because I was doing it all myself. And, whatever. It was better than what I was doing previous. After a while, I had actually a couple of storyboarding clients, and one of those clients is actually like my first storyboard client is still a client of mine today, and that's like 20 years later, and that's pretty amazing. But yeah, then one time, okay, so this was in like 2007. I was going through a rough patch, and like my girlfriend dumped me and stuff, and I was sort of feeling out things with this new girl who ended up being my wife eventually. But I was in this transitionary phase where I'm like, I need to take it to the next step. I need to get past this Craigslist thing. What can I do? And I was like, I need to get an agent. So I researched illustration agencies. And I sent off I had been making a living as an artist for like 3 years at that point. This is like 2007, right? So now of course my work wasn't amazing. It wasn't. Like this is pre-agency work for me was not amazing work, but it was good and it did make money. I was able to send out emails to I sent out emails to as many illustration agencies as I could. I was like, hey, I'm a digital artist. I've got blah 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 skills, and here's some samples of my work. Let me know if this looks good enough to have a further talk. I'm interested in representation, that sort of thing. And I sent it out I found 29 different illustration agencies, and I was like, okay, 29. Well, 29's a weird number. Let's just do one more, and then I can say I did 30. So the last one was the one that I didn't want to get into because the storyboarding work is hard. I found illustration work to be a little bit, it felt like it was easier. It was just like, oh, I'm just doing one drawing. And storyboarding, you have to do like 20 drawings. But there was a storyboard artist agency that was on like in my little Google search feed or whatever, back when Google search was worth something. And so I was like, okay, I'll fire one off to these people too, and we'll just see what happens, and then I'll know I cast out a big line. Well, all of those places either ghosted me, didn't respond at all. Probably 20 of the 29 didn't respond to me at all. And then over the course of the week, the other 9 got back and said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Not really what we're looking for. The last one that got back to me was the Storyboard Artist Agency. And they said, well, you're not very good, but I can see from your portfolio that you've been able to manage a few clients on your own. So we'll give you a try, and we'll start you at the bottom, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that is how I got started in 2007 with an agency that I'm still with, which is Frameworks. And that's a kind of like like a little boutique, sort of like well curated agency. It's not like the biggest, but they don't take like an exorbitant commit. Like the commission that they take is very fair, and the rates that they charge are competitive. So the work is pretty steady, as opposed to being like you're gonna land a big job and it's gonna be tons of money, but that only happens infrequently. They're very much concerned about like customer service and putting forth good work consistently and working as much as possible. So that's been my agent for nearly 20 years now. And so that's and once the agent stuff started feeding into me, I got a sense of like, okay, this job is hard, but the challenge is incredible, and I really responded well to it. And over time, that really built its own momentum to where I had my own reputation and for the most part now, the gigs that I get are through my reputation via recommendation. Like my agent obviously does handle like the representation and the booking and billing and scheduling and stuff like that. But only when things are slow. Like right now they're slow, so I do rely on them to like feed me jobs that come their way. But usually the work is more or less like they know they want me based on having worked with me before or hearing about me via reputation. So and that's been enough to keep me very busy and doing well for the better part of 10 years. So that's the nutshell. Sorry about my big old ranty rant, but the whole reality of like getting started as a freelancer, I think it's hard for everybody. It has to be. And the other weird factor is like, I'm not sure, like, so like right now I'm not starting over from nothing. Obviously, like there's a good chance today I'll get called and there will be a job, but what I'm trying to do now that's very, I hope it's interesting and like hopefully a little bit inspiring, because I knew that I had like a good talent that over time would develop into something that would sustain and make a career out of. Like I was like, this is worth it for me to push it too. But it isn't there's no guarantees. Like the very, very talented artists can languish because of miscalculations on all sorts of fronts. And it's very difficult. Some of the most talented like people who draw, believe it or not, there are people who draw even better than I do, but they run into their own issues where, I hate to say it, like they don't play the game as well as they should, where they're a little too a lot of being an artist as a freelancer is customer service, and you can't just fly off the handle if someone gives you notes that you think are unfair, or speak to I don't know, your personal opinions about things aren't necessarily things that your clients need to know about. I think it's the most diplomatic. Like, have a little bit of diplomacy and keep things a little bit happy at a surface level so that you're fun to work with, as opposed to like a coming off as a curmudgeon or a misanthrope, or like too many artists can just be like grumbly, unhappy dudes who appear unwashed and and unhappy. And who wants to work with a person like that? That's no fun. If you're taking the freelancing stuff seriously, like work on your smile, your charming personalities, emulate me and my amazingness, and just think like, what would Max do? No, but the reality is, it's like a lot of things that worked back then. I mean, it used to be like literally my parents walked into animation studios with portfolios that were crappy, and they got hired. And that was just based on friction in the marketplace, like people not knowing how to hire an artist. Now there's too many artists to hire and they don't differentiate well. We all sort of blend together on this Instagram feed. And it's like, oh, this artist is good, but wait, this artist is even better. But wait, this artist is even better. Yeah, you need all those things. Good customer service, skill, timely turnaround, like, and among all those things, like the timely turnaround is almost the most important. It may be the most important. I think that's where a lot of artists have issues, is they don't do a good job of managing their speed of drawing, their speed of execution, or their consistency. You have an off day, or, artists are, we're artists, with a lot of what I deal with personally is, I don't know, a sense of like, I'm a child of like the 80s. I grew up idolizing Bart Simpson and stupid shit like that. So it's like, in some ways, I don't want to behave. I want to stick it to the man. I want to do misbehavior and stuff like that. And working from home for me, like, it was really easy to get into day drinking and other stuff, especially during COVID, and a lot of bad habits. And none of that is good for your career, like delivering. You need to be able to 50%. Yeah, like it makes like a good strategy is to pad under promise and over deliver, as opposed to the opposite. You don't want to over promise and under deliver. I think that's what a lot of artists do, unfortunately. They're very interested in getting the gig, and so they'll put forth portfolio pieces that are super polished, and like, you can super polish a portfolio piece, but is that a representative sample as to what you can actually deliver consistently on a timely basis? And that is where a lot of artists fail to be honest with themselves about their own abilities. They're like, oh yeah, I do great work, and then meanwhile they, gun to the head, turns out that they have to, scour the internet for the references of people doing the most basic stuff, like drinking a cup of coffee, and they have to trace it and stuff like that because they can't draw it from scratch in a timely manner. Now, it's not like everybody's skills are at different places. I mean, I've referenced stuff all the time, at least in the past, but you got to move beyond that, because speed and actual fluency is important. You have to be able to deliver what you have contracted to do. So that's good. Now, I can't, here in the States, we don't have the ability to just opt out of Meta terms of service just yet. Those are, I expect that to be forthcoming. I think I said as much, that I don't expect there to be any different practical means between what we've put online is scanned. Like, it's past tense. It's been scanned. Whether or not they're admitting it now, it's done. It's sort of, that work is in the past. Deleting it or saying I don't approve of it, it won't change anything. And you don't have to take my word as an authority, but because I wouldn't, like, I'm not an authority at like those technical matters, but the Meta is not my client, but they're a client of my clients, and I work on Meta projects, and this is something that they're probably doing, whether or not you're approving of it. So I just have my doubts that we're gonna have to live with these trolls for a while a bit. That's just my thinking. Luke is correct in his statement there that the process of requesting an opt-out is cumbersome and not a guarantee. And I'll go further and just say it's not only not guaranteed, it's guaranteed in my I'll give you the guarantee that it's probably not worth taking them, like, when they say, oh, okay, well then we'll just opt you out, and it's like, well, if you leave it at that may not be the truth. but that's nothing to... I've more or less resolved to do this. If anything... Well, here's an option for you guys as freelancers. If unless everybody who is in the audience is switching to, like, if the audience for your work is other artists, then switch to Kara, where all the artists are switching to. I looked at Kara the other day, for instance, as an alternative. I was like, okay, this is potentially good. So I looked at it. I'm like, okay. And I instantly got DeviantArt vibes, because all this is just artists on top of artists on top of artists. And of course, the best work is filtering to the top. And of course, you know, it's highly polished stuff that, like, no one who's hiring artists can necessarily get a good sense of, like, how long that takes to execute that art. So it's not it just looks like it, even as a prospective, like, recruiter would look at that and be like, well, this is more confused. This adds too much information to me to be useful. And I'm just not sure. I'm not sure Kara is the answer, because they don't have a following yet, at least, of your average person who isn't an artist, but isn't... Yeah, everybody's just basically still on Instagram. Now, of course, you're... Yeah, like, I'm on there, but I'm not represented as, like... I'm not going to put all my... I have some doubts, and not without reason. I'm not just, like, being a naysayer for no reason about it. It's like a art platform by artists for artists. And I'm like, well, if it's by artists, then it's probably not going to be very well run. You know, and there's sort of disparaging comments and stuff like that. But I don't have... I don't just put a ton of hope into things that I want to be true. As a matter of, you know, habit, like practical habit, I think it's important to... Let's see. Ethan Becker. Okay, I gotta look this person up. Sam Draws, okay. Okay. Sam Draws, I think I'm familiar with. All that stuff is really impressive to me. The Ethan Becker. Edgy, anime, animation story director. Cool. This is, here we can pull this off a little bit. Oop. Just so we know what we're talking about. Very cool stuff. That doesn't look like that's him drawing that. Let's see here. But these are like the top things. Person in question. Interesting. Time will tell. Time will tell. Tutorial on YouTube. Yeah, that... Same face in... Oh, in their art, you mean? I think that's normal for artists to not only draw everybody pretty much with the same face. This is not as bad as I've... But I know what you're talking about with same face syndrome, where like everybody's like all the women look exactly the same. I'm not sure. I'm not guilty of that myself in any way. You know, he's in good company there. I think pretty much most artists have that issue. Oh, that's cool. He's on YouTube then. Huh. Well, he's not so famous I've heard of him, so neener. Neela is the voice of reason. I believe that there's room for all of us to bring our own voices to this stuff. There's nothing about this that I would point out that, you know, I'll concede. In fact, a little professional jealousy. I was like, oh, he's at DreamWorks and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see. Here's one thing that I wonder, though. And of course, I don't work at DreamWorks. I don't know what it's like to go in those circles and be surrounded by that, like those talents like that. The anime influenced stuff is super hot right now. Obviously, he knows his fundamentals. There's nothing I'll say anything bad about this, other than I feel like this is emulatable and will highly be in that place. Especially if it's like something that's active and known about in the chat. And if you are looking to stand out as an artist, maybe don't emulate the most popular emulated artist that you can think of. Does that make sense? I have a prediction a little bit about, so I've thought about this a lot with I should actually draw something today. I've thought a lot about this a lot with the like rise of like AI art and stuff like that. I wonder if, now this is easy for me as like a storyboard artist, and frankly, I'm a sprinter, not a finisher. Like, this is not like me doing this project is me working, like I already said, in slow motion at a scale in which I wouldn't normally do. But the way that things are going with like AI art and how they're trying to put it into Sam Does art. These are such funny. Okay, well, let's pull off Sam Does art right here, and let's see what we see. And we see what's happened is the world's most popular internet artist, or, you know, Lowish, or this person, for instance. You can look at this and you can see AI everywhere here. Everywhere. And the style and the demand for this art has been appropriated by the purveyors of artificial intelligence. So what do we think about like the future here? Is this something that we want to, like, you like, we all make our bets, right? Like, you can do like, okay, this is still what I want to do, so you do it, or whatever, if that's what you want to do. Or Sam might be like, well, this is me, this is my voice, I'm going to keep doing it, or whatever. But to me, I have troubling thoughts about where I see this. New person in the chat, welcome. All of this, like, Sam Does art and Ethan Becker, all that is extremely, like, I have this term, like, saleable. Like, it's basically art you can make money from. And wherever you can get there is, I think, what you should do if you want to be a freelancer. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of difficult to ply your trade. But But like there are, you take your paths, right? And where when I started out, everybody was doing the DeviantArt thing, and I did it differently via making my own website and going on Craigslist and finding my way, and I made my way in Los Angeles in a competitive market in advertising that way. So the world that my parents inhabited, which was deeply entrenched in animation, they had long careers in animation, but that wasn't where I made my niche. My niche was in storyboarding for commercials and video game trailers that, and it's not always sexy, and it's nice to have a trillion followers or whatever. But I am, grateful that I got enough traction to do well in a very limited amount of humble brag statement, but I did well in a difficult market in real life, and not playing like handshake work, like showing up in a studio, sitting down, talking with directors that way, and not just drawing what was fun for me to draw, but drawing really hard things that other people needed me to draw. And I've worked on really cool projects. All the bucket lists are, I've worked on stuff that went before Michelle Obama, Lady Gaga, every kind of Fortune 500 company. I've worked on Apple commercials, Google commercials, Microsoft commercials, Meta commercials, everything. So there's no, in a way, I feel like I've done enough for me to like feel like I'm justified in branching out into doing something a little more. I'm like, okay, where am I going to go in the back half of my career? And I don't want to just keep defaulting to what I've been doing. So anyway, I'll take lessons from Ethan Becker. Like, we could do a study of Ethan Becker. Fuck, I might do that later today because his stuff looks good, But if there's a flaw to be found, I'll find it. The Sam Does Art stuff, it's really hard for me to tell. Well, it's hard for me to tell what on here is even his, Like, this stuff is awesome. And it's very saleable. Does he do pretty much this? Like, can he draw a car, for instance? Can he sell a drawing of a car to Mercedes-Benz? What I would encourage, and especially on this, is that like this stream, because there's 1,000 streams where you can learn how to draw a cute dog and a girl playing with it. Tens of thousands of streams that way. But that's been done, okay? Like, they can do that. That's been done. Here, we're gonna learn how to draw a fucking octopus crashing through a forest, like while two heroes are riding bareback on a saddle of a horse, like trying to escape. All sorts of different stuff. Everything under the sun. And then, my next project, I'll do something sci-fi futuristic where we've got futuristic cars and all sorts of different stuff. All right, now Stop talking about other artists. Stop. Focus on me. No, just kidding. No, I appreciate the name dropping. It is very important to be cognizant of competition based. I mean, when you think about this stuff, if you are a freelancer, you have to think about that like in that way. Like you are, in a way, like like you're kind of up against that as the competition. Like the war for eyeballs, like on any kind of social media, is going to go to the winner of the. I mean, I don't know what is the thing. What's the secret sauce? I don't even know. Like this stream might not this might be as big as I get, you know, kind of a thing, and that's okay. We'll see. All right, let's try to take a look again now. Okay, I have a feeling this will look cool. Once it's nice and shaded. And now we're in a cool spot with these ones at the top here. Because while it looks like I've applied some shading here, this was just by means of like quick demonstration how just a little bit of like lighting and gradient effect. By all means, I am actually really interested in knowing what other artists that you are interested in, and just so everybody knows, like, I think almost everybody in this chat, right? Like Neela, for instance, streams on Twitch. I know that, and Luke, you've been streaming a couple times. Nuki, I don't know if you are an artist or you stream, but you know, everybody should follow each other and help each other out. I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet what everybody's forte is, but your interests are varied and different. And I am curious about knowing what. No, Nuki does things is following me on Twitch now. That's cute. That's cool to see. I have to have my email window up here and my text messages, so I know if my wife is leaving for the day and stuff. Alright. Here, I'm going to draw something really quick here. I'm going to draw the legs on this spider. There's been a lot of talking, at least on this stream so far, and I apologize for the unscheduled rantings. Okay. Comic book work is really yes, show me your work in progress. Like this will be a safe place. Like I won't give unsolicited critiques, but I'm very curious what you guys are working on. And you can post a link in the chat. I'll be reckless. I like to live dangerously by clicking on links that people post in the chat. So assuming we're all fans of Zelda, we know and remember that injured Link can resurrect himself with fairies in a bottle. And the context here is that Link is actually like trapped under the giant legs of a defeated enemy. Yeah. If ever there was a time to be rickrolled. I'm gonna draw this one leg and then I'm gonna click that link. Click that link. kind of like it when you can almost see. Did you guys ever see Nausicaa, the Miyazaki film? You better say yes. I keep meaning to jump into your chat with your drawing in progress, Nilo. But I did see that you had changed a couple things the other day. Okay, it was my first Ghibli too. So Nausicaa, when it was first distributed in the United States, was not called Nausicaa. It was called Warriors of the Wind. It was we had it on VHS, and it was my father, for whatever reason, was a bit of a fan of anime, like an early American fan of anime. I think it's because he appreciated that in Japanese cartoons you could get away with tons of sex and violence. It was something he always wanted to, always wished, I think, he could do, is have more serious kinds of stories in the projects that he was working on. But while this monster that is more or less defeated and sitting on top of Link is dead and mostly cropped out of frame, we can only see its legs, like its spider legs. I believe there's a dungeon boss called Goraya, which is a spider. Sort of using that as the inspiration for this defeated enemy. But the way Miyazaki had designed his giant Gorgons, for instance, I watched that movie so many times when I was a kid, like under 10 years old. It's one of my favorite films ever. So some of those influences will come out. Nausicaa and the Warriors of the Wind. Okay. All right, I'm gonna click this this link. Wish me luck, everybody. Oh, cool. Zoom in. Okay, so this is Luke's work. Let's all gush over it. I like the so this is sort of work in progress. We see the construction lines and stuff, but it almost looks like you've been coloring it. So are you intending to keep the construction lines, or are they sort of like an animatronic, like you actually see the stitching sort of a thing? I zoomed in on it. This looks acceptable for the stream. Blocking out the colors. I see. Better res. All right, we'll click this. I love... Oh, thanks for not rickrolling me. I'm so innocent. Are these stars, or are they like particle patterns? It's a little bit ambiguous, although the color of the background obviously looks like they may be like stars. But it's fun. It's got a lot of magic. This is a fun way of it. What I like about it is it looks like a real media sort of version. Like it's not it's not like overly precise. Like it like I like that it doesn't look like like you just took like a in this world where people just like literally take photographs and use them as backgrounds. I appreciate that you did not do that. I appreciate that you did not do that. It looks like it's from the hand of the artist, which I like. This is a very nice hand and the gesture. And this is a fun, I like this sort of cheeky expression. Is this your OC? Your original character? Or will we recognize this character from popular media? Here's something I especially appreciate is the variation on the flapping wings of the butterfly. And the context that it gives. Okay. Vicky's OC. All right. I'm here to. I'm an explainer of these insider knowledges. No, OCs are, if I'm not mistaken, original characters that people get to. And then when you ship your OCs, it means you're making them have a relationship in your head canon, and all sorts of different. Or I might just be retconning the whole thing, right? Okay, so this is a bit of a self-portrait by Vicky. Self-portrait of Vicky in her OC, drawn by Luke. But I love the simplicity. Oh, it looks like you have a little bit of a glow effect on the butterflies too. And I like the toned pencil line, which also seems to have a little bit of a glow effect. The yellow eyes are interesting. All right, this is great work in progress. Well, the anatomy and everything looks really good. Can I beg the smallest change that I think might help me? The line here of this, the fold, maybe set that down. It almost reads only. Okay, here's the thing: is I'm a little bit colorblind, and I'm not as sensitive to dark reds as a lot of people are. So where some of you probably see this very clearly, like the line of the eyebrow, that to me is very secondary compared to like what's happening here. I wonder if this was lowered ever so slightly, just ever so slightly, so it didn't read so much like as if it could be an eyebrow line, only because this is now, it's by design, you have it hidden, but the contrast makes it very difficult for it to jump out at me, and it looks like it's integral to the expression. Just a thought. Ignore at your discretion. That would just be one small thing. You have a really nice shape to the eyes here. All right, we are going to cease the praise. Praise is done. Thank you for sharing. Very cool. Yeah, I'm not like in any sort of disadvantage with my, well, I mean, with coloring, you'll notice that actually that I don't, if I do much coloring on this, it will be with the disclaimer that I am I have a very common form of color blindness, which is it's pretty common among men to have the color blindness that I have. I guess they call it oh, there's a technical name for it, but reds and greens are a little bit difficult for me to discern when occurring at certain shades. Red-green colorblind, yeah, but that doesn't mean like I don't see red and green. I see red and green, but there are shades of color, and it's not just red and green, that give me a lot of trouble. Here's how you know I'm colorblind. One day, I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying a pink hat, but one day I came home and I was wearing a pink Dodger hat. It was pink and purple, like the color. Like I thought I had bought a black and white Dodger hat, but the colors were very subtle, and the tones were very like bright and contrasted, and I just wasn't paying that close of attention, and I bought I guess at most I thought it was like a white and like navy blue hat, like very dark blue, because I could tell there was some color to it, but not. I did not realize I had bought like a pink and purple hat. That was not something I quite understood. I wore this Dodger hat for that's a baseball team in LA. I wore this hat for better part of 2 weeks before my wife said, "So what's up with the hat?" I was like, "Oh, I like the hat," and she's like, "It's a little pink," and I was like, "What?" Pink is a lovely color, but that was not the intention. I did not buy it for the pink color. It was, to me, just a normal looking black and white, possibly white and navy blue. Yeah, like let's talk about your hat. This hat is not you. You know, something that happened. Let me see here. I don't know if this is gonna quite work the way I've drawn it, because I've got all these different limbs sort of coming from. Yeah, I'm a recipient of some faulty X's there. I also wear corrective contact lenses. Something really fun happened the other day. I was happy to see it. I have 2 young children. I have a daughter. I can say their names because it's whatever their names. It's I have a daughter, Kiki, and my son's name is Robbie. And Kiki picked up the art bug at a decent age. Like, I was drawing at a very early age, and it's been curious to me whether or not my kids would be interested at all in being artists themselves. So I've sort of been slyly monitoring, but not wanting to force anything, not force the issue. I want them to be themselves, and I understand that being a professional artist myself might be unfairly influential on them. So I sort of have been sitting back a little bit with that stuff, not trying to overexert any sort of influence on their activities beyond encouragement. See, this isn't working. And I don't know if it needs to be as dramatic as I have it. Well, it's not like it's not working, but the, like this limb, even the way I've got it, I can't really do that to draw it slightly different. I think we can get away with something adjusted, but my son, literally the other day for the first time, I saw this happen. He drew a legible heart on the sidewalk with chalk. And was like, I drew a heart. And went to go stand in it, and was very proud of himself, and I was very happy to see that, and I heaped lots of praise on him. And then he proceeded to draw another one, even better than the first one, and then drew a bunch of them in a row, and I'm drawing hearts. It was very fun to see him have that joy. Sort of, I can do this. I have a new power. Do we all have artistic families, or are any of us sort of weird outliers where, like, I think I've made it clear that my parents were both professional artists in animation. So I very much grew up with that as a normal thing to see, like parents doing and associating with artists. Something I'm doing right here, which is not something I really wanted to be doing, but I'm not sure if I can avoid it very well, is as you can see, I'm applying a little bit of shading to the form as I'm drawing it. Whereas in almost every other instance, I've been using just line art. I think it's just because I'm trying to feel it out in real time. Not professionally, but I come from a crafty and artistic family. My father was an architect and later became a painter when he went on patient. Carrying his legacy, yes. I'm always interested in how people get into art and where they find their... Like, I have a friend who is a terrible drawer. He cannot draw and cannot paint and professes to have no creativity. And yet, I go to his house and he has a workbench covered in paints and figurines that he paints. He paints and does, like, he's got like his magnifying glass setups and all of these materials, like many different kinds of paints, many different kinds of solvents and cleaners and spray paints. And I'm like, dude, look at all this stuff. Like, yeah, I'm like, homie, your artistic workspace is more impressive than my own. You know, and he's like very demure about it. He's like, oh no, I'm no artist. You know, you're the artist. And yet I'm just sort of like, homie, I'm not sure why you're making all these excuses to take yourself out of that. You are definitely being artistic when you are at this sort of level of seriousness about it. There's you appear to be taking this more seriously than I do, at least in some ways. I think everybody's artistic. Yeah. Do you guys ever notice that? People will be like, no, I can never be an artist. I can never be an artist. But then, like, they'll have some sort of random knowledge about art, or people will be like, oh, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. But, like, they'll have extensive knowledge about custom car detailing with pinstripe painting or some sort of technical skill like that, and their excuse is like, well, that's not drawing and painting for mass audiences or something. I'm like, homie, that's not, it's all the same. I don't know if it's like the same, but it's not something that I don't make a distinction there. Like, you're being an artist. That is being an artist. You're interested in art. Yeah. There's always just been this sort of false narrative that, like, artists can't be, I don't know, like, you can't, I mean, granted, it can be extremely difficult, but you can make a living as an artist. Like, you don't, I don't know. I think what happens is art can be one of those things that if you really, really love it, but it doesn't go the way you want it to, it can be extremely painful. That probably is the same way with music too, where people can be extremely talented, but the path to becoming successful via your own craft, it's extremely challenging. And you do need a lot of support. And I guess thinking about it now, I understand why people would be reluctant to put themselves out there. It will require a lot of vulnerability, don't you think? Yeah. Yeah, do you guys ever have, like, imposter syndrome? Because I do. I do. Very much do. If I was in the, looking at the, with the Ethan Becker artist, and they're like, oh, I'm a visual development at DreamWorks. I'm like, I used to deliver computers to DreamWorks, and I'd see in the halls all the artists that would put their art on the walls. I remember being jealous then. And I remember going years later, to drop off my portfolio at DreamWorks and having it basically go and sit on a shelf with other. At DreamWorks, it didn't like fall all the way to the bottom, but it like that one story. But no, it came back in the mail with no notes, no inscription, just like, thanks, here's your portfolio back. And if I had been a little more persistent, or maybe tried again at a later time, would I have had a different result? Could I have gotten in and done well there? Because the work that I do is good, it wasn't good before I went you know, it took a while before I had the skills to do what I'm demoing right now. I mean, even as I'm doing this, I'm not really even thinking about it. A lot of what I do is via now. I've learned actually to use my emotions more to channel into what I'm doing and do it more by feel than anything. The composition tells you so much. It'll tell you what it needs if you can be sensitive to what the drawing is trying to communicate. It can be like its own life form. You can help it become. I was talking about imposter syndrome, but I think you just have to keep going. It's okay to take a break if that's what your mental state needs. Get some perspective, but like my road on how I found it's like, do I qualify as successful? I know objectively I do. I think the metrics, like I can see it on paper. It's not something I can deny. But like as far as like my agent, this was 10 years ago. My agent told me that I was the highest earning, most requested artist at my agency. And the agency represents probably something like 40 artists of different varying skill and price. But she let me know that at that time I was at the top. That was 10 years ago. And as far as I know, that's still the case. That was a big sort of notice for me that like, okay, I must be doing okay. Oh guys, I can hear that my kids are awake and my wife is already at work, so I need to call it an end to the stream. I appreciate everybody hanging out, and look, we did some drawing. We got some crab legs or crab sections happening here. I think the composition will work okay. I really do appreciate your company. Now, bear with me. I'm going to try something different. Try something different. Nuki, this is new to everybody but you, although it's new to you. But I figured out how to do this little fade out thing. So I'm going to say bye. It's going to fade out. It's going to show some drawings, and then I'll end the stream. These will be random storyboards from previous work. This is all from the year 2019. This won't be interesting, but it's just something to like have as like an intro and an outro to the stream. We'll see if it works. I'll check out the VOD later and see if it worked out. But I really appreciate it. I'll try to check out your streams today too. All right, and I might stream later. We'll see how it goes. All right, adios.